Hello and welcome to Events Dear Boy, the podcast for anyone involved in business events. If you're a conference producer, corporate event organiser, or an events agency, then we're here for you. We share the highs and the lows, the best practices and the horror stories, and you can expect ideas and inspiration and maybe some laughs.
And if you're a speaker at these events, then we're here for you too. We talk about how you do it, what makes speakers nervous, how it feels when it all goes really well, and what happens when it goes terribly.
My name is Catherine McNamara and I'm the marketing lead at the talent agency Pomona Partners and someone who has organised many business events in my working life. Alongside me is Pomona Partners founder and professional speaking veteran, Tom Cheesewright.
Each episode, we're going to be joined by a guest from the business event space, either an events organiser or a speaker. We'll ask them to share their experiences, both good and bad, and their tips for other people, maybe you, in their positions.
And this week, we're joined by someone who I've had the pleasure of working with on events for too many years to mention now, Kerry Merritt. So, Kerry, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No, it's brilliant to have you here. So, just for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your role?
Yeah, of course. So I am Kerry, head of content at Total Telecom, which is part of Terrapin Group, which is a global events organiser. I've been at Total Telecom for 8 years now. So yes, Catherine, it has been too many years that we've been working together. I started out as a conference producer and over the years have progressed to head of content. And my main focus at the moment is our Connected Britain event, which is kind of our flagship event, but also leading on the content strategy across all of our events. So that's included some launches in the US in the past couple of years, delving into other different markets as well. So yeah, it's been a fun and varied 8 years. I mean, that's probably why I've stayed for such a long time.
I mean, just to make you both feel really young, I started working with Total Telecom, and if it didn't exist, then its predecessors, certainly with Terrapin, 25 years ago. So,
oh wow, how old are you, Tom?
Absolutely ancient.
You look so youthful.
I hosted the then editor of Total Telecom at Mobile World Congress back when it was in Cannes in, 2002, something like that.
Oh,
2000.
wow.
So yeah, a very, very long time ago.
When you were in your teens?
Yeah, sadly not, no.
So, Kerry, what kind of events are you putting together? What, size, scale? You've mentioned Connected Britain, which I know is massive. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of size and scale types of events?
Yeah, so I think our strategy overall as a business has kind of changed a bit in the past few years. I mean, just to put it into context with Connected Britain, when we launched that event, and this is its 10th year now, so I wasn't even at the launch of the event, but I think it was a sort of a 200-person event, which was in the hotel somewhere in London, and it's now this year going to be 7,500 people at the XL. So it's been quite a journey. But I'd say all of our events are kind of conference first, and then the exhibition side of things has kind of evolved as well. So I know obviously lots of different events organisers have quite different approaches, but I mean, I'm probably biased because I am head of content, but I would say that the content has always kind of been the core of our propositions, and then the exhibition is something that's kind of grown alongside that.
Excellent. And what is it that you love most, and what do you always see if you can try and put off if you take the two extremes?
So you're not allowed to say I love content the most.
Well, no, I mean, I think the thing that I really love about this job, and probably is actually the reason why I've stayed for such a long time, is just the sheer variety of people that you get to speak to. I mean, how many jobs do you get to regularly do calls with, the CEO of a huge UK telco, or to meet like the minister, some of the ministers, like for example, we've got the minister for telecoms coming next week, and he's newly appointed in the new government. And how often do you actually get to meet people like that and day to day? And I think because of the breadth of topics we cover at our events, and especially our connected events, which are really, they're not just telecoms events anymore, they're very much looking at the whole connectivity ecosystem and what that involves. It's such a wide range of people that you get to speak to that it really keeps it interesting and keeps you kind of on your toes all the time. There's always something new to learn. And I know when I was at uni, one of the things I really enjoyed was always doing the research side of things, and to have a job that kind of allows you to do that and allows you to access to so many different industries, I think is so interesting. Because I remember in my interview, my now MD said to me, "Oh, how do you feel about working in the telecom sector?" And I remember sort of, the answer that you give in an interview, going, "Oh yeah, sure, no, I'm sure I could get really interested in the telecom sector." And genuinely, like 8 years later, I actually am. I geek out over it so much.
A change of government must be a real scramble for you, isn't it? Having to build a load of new relationships.
No, to be honest, we're quite lucky in that we've got good relationships with the kind of core comms team from the government. And actually, to be honest, the fact that we knew roughly when the election was going to be and things like that has actually made this year a bit easier. I think a couple of years ago, we had a cabinet reshuffle the week before the event. We had elections being called, so we lost government speakers. So touch wood, I mean, hopefully the minister does come next week and it all goes well. But this year's actually been a lot smoother getting the minister than it has been in previous years.
Good.
So that's what you love. What do you put off? What is kind of first on the list to say, oh, give that someone else to do? Don't want to really do that.
Or, I think the bit that I find really challenging at times is that month period before the event, when you're trying to book in briefing calls with everyone and you're trying to get panels together to be on a call. And I always have that moment of dread when I send out the poll going, okay, when's everyone available for the call? And you sort of look at it back and you think, there's about 5 different dates that only one person can do. And I think that bit probably is the admin job that I dislike the most. It's just that moment of dread. It's so rare that you open up the poll and 5 people are all available at the same slot at the same day and the same time. But I mean, there's not too many things that I don't like, but I would probably say that it's those sort of little admin jobs that you know are coming, and it's that month before the event when you're quite busy with making sure everything's all set, and then you're trying to coordinate diaries. It's a bit like herding cats, I think, sometimes trying to get everyone in one place at one time.
If I can make you feel any better, it feels like herding cats as well when you're kind of on the other side trying to work with companies to do it as well. But I know the amount of effort that goes into it. I turned up at Connected Britain last year on the eve of the first day and promptly was told to turn around and go and buy a high-vis waistcoat. So that was cool. And I walked in and I was like, whoa, this is massive. This is massive. You guys have got so much to do before the doors open, and you would have had no idea if you reappeared at 8 a.m. It was just such a spectacle that had been put on. And hats off. That is a logistical. That's like big stuff.
Mean, we're really lucky that we've got an absolutely fantastic operations team. I mean, I really don't envy their job. It's the one job that if it goes wrong, everyone's the first person to be on their case about things that are going wrong. But if it goes smoothly, I don't think they get enough credit for all the things that they do. And I mean, you don't pull together a 7,000 person event on your own. The rest of the team is absolutely fantastic. I mean, our sales team, marketing team, it really does. They say it takes a village to raise children, doesn't it? It takes a massive city to raise an event, and I mean, comparatively, it's quite a small team, really. So it's really a collaborative effort, I definitely think. But I'm glad to hear it looks smooth from the outside, from your perspective.
It definitely does.
Duck paddling furiously under the water. Is there an event that you're most proud of, like one in particular in history, or a particular event that really sticks out in the mind?
I think I would say the one that really stands out was there are 2 particular Connected Britons that I think stand out. One of them would be, it must have been 2021. So it was 2021, I think, and it was, we'd had all the pushbacks with COVID, so we'd done one of the events virtually. So the 2020 event was virtual, and I think, I mean, if you think of physical events, a lot of work, virtual events were it was a humongous amount of admin and work that went into it. But I think it was that moment in 2021 where we'd already pushed back the event to be in September. So it was one of the very first events that we ran. We did a smaller event at the start of September, but then at the end of September, we ran Connected Britain. And I think it was just sort of looking at the event and seeing it, and we'd had record attendance, which, obviously post-COVID, everyone was so keen to get back to events, and there was a real surge. But I think it was that moment when sort of looking over the balcony at the Business Design Centre in London and seeing Connected Britain, and there was a point back in 2020 where you didn't, you sort of felt like you maybe wouldn't get back to that point where you were actually stood in a physical event. And I'd only just been promoted to head of content that year. My manager had left in the July, so it was a real sort of moment of like, oh, I've been part of this, and we're back, and we're back in person. So that one really stands out. And then I think as well, Connected Britain last year when we moved from the Business Design Centre to the Excel, and I think like you said, Catherine, it's sort of it's such a jump going from the Business Design Centre, which is a fantastic venue. We've done so many events there, and it really sort of was the home of Connected Britain for a few years. But then going to the Excel, which was like such a big jump, such a huge venue in comparison, and sort of walking around the show floor just before it opened last year and being like, wow, we've made it to this, and we filled it. And then seeing the people come in, all the aisles all full and busy, and the keynote theatre packed out, and yeah, so I think that one probably stands out quite a lot for me.
Is there a challenge maintaining the sort of the culture and the atmosphere of an event when you move between venues like that? Because the Business Design Centre's got a real, there's a real sense of space there. Like, you know where you are, and it's got good sort of nooks and crannies that you can go and do stuff in. Whereas Excel is like a big box. I think it must be a real challenge, isn't it, to actually to rebuild that culture there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that was people's biggest reservation about us moving from the Business Design Centre to the Excel. But I think anyone that came to our last year in the Business Design Centre would probably have said that we definitely ran out of space. I think the cafes had run out of sandwiches by 1 p.m. and things like that. We'd definitely outgrown the space. But I think what's so nice about the Connected Britain community is that it really does feel like a community. And I think having that core where the events evolved and grown rather than just gone straight into a big venue like the Excel. I think that core has kind of stayed, and hopefully we've managed to keep that feeling of community with the event. And it's certainly with now having the Connected North event as well, which it's a sister event to Connected Britain, which runs in Manchester. I think it really does feel like there's that connected community, and hopefully people feel that as well.
What's been your biggest event disaster?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I'm not going to say the cliched COVID stories or anything like that, but I think it has to be last year. We ran our Connected event in Germany, and this is completely out of our control, but Munich had the biggest snowstorm that it had in 60 years, I think.
Wow.
And it took... Wow, we got to the airport at 5 a.m. All of our flights were cancelled. Had to get a flight to a completely different city, a coach to somewhere else to get the bus to Munich. And I think it was just, I wouldn't recommend trying to run an event in a snowstorm, because even people in Germany were struggling to get anywhere. The trains were all being cancelled. I think our marketing manager was supposed to be arriving in Munich on the Friday night. He landed eventually in Frankfurt at some point on Saturday. It took him about 3 days to get to the event in the end. And so obviously people in Germany were having the same issue. And our producer for Connected Germany was sat on his phone, and the number of speaker cancellations that were coming through of people that just couldn't make it to the event. And it was still a great event, but it just wasn't quite what we had planned. So I think, those kind of force majeure issues, which you have absolutely no control over. But I'd say probably, I don't want to go as far as saying disaster, but I think that was probably the most stressed our team has been, with just something that is just completely out of your control. But it was lovely. The snow in Munich was great.
Very, very beautiful. Lots of opportunities for Glühwein, but rather stressful.
Exactly.
And who's your favourite speaker been? Because you've mentioned, obviously, access to government, to some quite high profile business people. Who've you really kind of got a buzz off watching?
I don't know. I feel like hundreds of speakers over the year. It'd be hard to isolate just one of those. I'm trying to think who really stands out. I mean, we've got some cool speakers like this year at the event. We've got United Autosports, who are the team behind, I think they're behind McLaren racing, and they're kind of talking about the applications of connectivity in the motorsports industry. So that's one that I'm looking forward to in particular. It's not fair to say just one person that's been a favourite speaker, I don't think.
Is there a particular characteristic that stands out among the ones who really make it sing that you notice? Particularly, I think I'm interested in that. You obviously got your professional speakers, But you're obviously dealing with a lot of industry speakers as well, who it's not their job to necessarily be amazing.
Yeah.
They're there representing their company or trying to get a message across. Is there something that stands out among the ones that you think, yeah, I'd like to have you back?
Yeah, I mean, I always find our connected events that the sessions that I go to and I particularly enjoy are always the ones that are with lots of local authorities and councils. I just think those guys do such. Again, it's a bit like I was saying with our operations team. You know, the local authorities are doing a job that can be so challenging at times. There's so many requirements for them to meet. You know, they're using public money to do their jobs and to get off these projects, which some of them are incredible. Some of the stories that you hear them talking about and some of the challenges that they face. And so I think in terms of those ones, it's always the ones that have got the most interesting story that I really enjoy. And I think, yeah, the local authority sessions always, I come out from them, and they're the research calls that I enjoy the most as well, to be honest, hearing about what they're doing and sort of really, like I said, it's just understanding a job and an industry that you really, you know, as a normal resident living in a community, that you really don't understand some of the challenges that go through. So it's always those ones that kind of give you an insight into something that, you know, you wouldn't have understood otherwise. I always find really interesting.
And apart from clearing their diaries in the month before the event so that you can get the calls in, what tips would you give to speakers at events, like in terms of making the most of it or delivering the best for your audience?
Yeah, I always think the presentations and things that I always find the most interesting are the ones where people can really take a lesson away from it. It's not just a sales pitch. It's, you know, if you can present something that's a story that, you know, that's either a success story, or even sometimes I think people actually really like hearing well, this was the end result, but actually it took us all these challenges to get to that point. And I always think those kind of presentations and panels are the most interesting, where people are a bit more honest. And I know it's always challenging because you've always got a comms team behind a lot of speakers who will want the right things to be said. But I think it's that kind of honesty on stage that people really come away from it and they think, actually, I've heard something that is different from what I've maybe heard from other events or other sessions, and I've really learned something that I can take away and apply in my own business, even something that might seem really small. I mean, we're all, especially, you know, across certain industries, lots of common challenges, and I think really when you can come to an event and problem solve some of those challenges and really have a takeaway from what you've heard, I think that's what makes it most interesting.
It is. It's one of our speakers, Vimla Apadu, talks about showing vulnerability on stage, but actually not, you know, you're not this sort of perfectly crafted armor that you go up with, but actually demonstrating that you're a human being who has felt it, you know, has faced a trial and dealt with it. It often produces the most interesting stories. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's the human story, isn't it? We're all human. Mistakes happen. Then, you know, there's going to be challenges along the way in any sector, no matter what job you're doing. So I think being honest about those, and yeah, it takes a bit of self-reflection sometimes as well. And I know that might not be what every comms team wants to hear, but actually I think it probably humanizes you a lot more, and your offering, and it probably builds a bit more trust as well, actually, to be like, actually, this, you know, this can go wrong and it's okay if it does go wrong, because you can still get to that end point that we've got to. It's not a perfect journey to get to a certain point. So yeah, I think that's probably why I definitely agree with that speaker.
And what tips to other event organisers, to your peers?
Oh, organisation, and always try not to put the jobs off that you don't like doing or that are difficult. You know, I always find that the jobs that, or things that go wrong, especially events, that are often the things that you've put off, or the email that you're worried about sending, or the person that you were worried about their reaction to something. I mean, that reaction is only going to be worse if you leave it until the week before and then you're trying to deal with that issue. You know, I think trying to be proactive and, you know, always maybe have a plan B, or, you know, anticipate what might go wrong. I mean, it's kind of like what I said about the operations team earlier. I think why they do so well is because they've always planned for what might go wrong, or just, you know, if you're worried about it, do something about it, because it probably will go wrong. There's a reason why you're worried about it.
Well, I think that's a really great place to wrap it up, Kerry. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you too for listening and watching, and we hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please leave a review, like and subscribe, and most importantly, share the podcast with your colleagues and peers, whether they're fellow speakers or event organisers, and we will be back soon with another episode.
Thanks. Bye-bye.